So hi everyone, we've got a few people joining us already. It's Andrew Mowat here and I'm with the fabulous Tania Lattanzio today. Hi Tania, how are you?
Hello, I'm not quite sure about the fabulous, but thank you. It's appreciated.
Many people know you as either wonderful or fabulous and a real thought leader in the space of inquiry amongst many other things. And today's all about learning a bit more about you, connecting with you as a person, connecting with a couple of your ideas more than anything, just a light conversation. And it's great to talk with someone. I mean, it's always great to talk with whoever I'm talking with, but we're in the same time zone and we're in the same country even. So that's something a bit of a change. So tell us about you. You're clearly in Singapore?
Yes, I am clearly in Singapore, obviously. I've been in Singapore now for, must be, I think it's about 16 years.
Mm.
So prior to Singapore, I was in Vietnam, and prior to that, Indonesia, and then, of course, I'm from Australia. But the job came up at the International Baccalaureate to be one of the PYP managers, which is what really brought me to Singapore. And then, of course, that was just such a wonderful, incredible experience, having this opportunity to go in and work with so many schools and collaborate with them and to learn from them. And I loved it so much that I thought, I'd love to have more of that school focus. And so that's really what led me into the consultancy with Andrea Mueller. And I've been doing that now for over 10 years. So I've been up and running as Innovative Global Education for over 10 years.
It's amazing. I think we first crossed paths in a couple of different ways at the Australian International School here. And of course, we've connected with Craig Kemp, who is an apology today and can't make it. But we've got some people. Craig's just jumped on and right on time. And Craig's just jumped in to say hi, everyone. Excited to be here. So he is here for a short amount of time. I know he's juggling several spinning plates.
The fact that I think anyone's here, I mean, schools, this time of the year is crazy. I've been working with lots of schools over the past couple of weeks, and it's just such a busy, busy time for people. So for anyone that's even turned up, credit to you. It's such a busy time.
And thank you to you as well, because I know that we've been juggling a bit and finding the right time where we can have a conversation and connect. And we will talk about your course a little bit later on. In fact, you've got 2 courses now. We'll talk about that a bit later on. But I'd love to know where's home to begin with. In terms of Australia and the Australian accent, I often listen to the subtleties in Australian accents. Where is home for you?
So home's Melbourne. So I spent my first 21 years in Melbourne and then left and travelled overseas for a year, as most Australians do, then came back for a few years and went back overseas for another year, then came back, and now I've been away for 21 years.
Wow. Yeah, it's like, I think the expat education scene is full of people who just discover this brilliant world of international education in particular, and how big the world is and how energizing it can be to work in different contexts in different countries. What have you found to be the most enjoyable thing about living and working out of Australia?
I think the fact that, Australia's a wonderful country, and of course I consult so I can go to other places, but Singapore's just such a hub, right? When we could travel, everyone, that is, of course. Now we're all stuck, and a lot of us are stuck. We're stuck. We've been stuck. But I think, to me, the most exciting thing's being able to connect with people, to be able to go and see how people live their lives in different country, to broaden my own perspectives and my own understandings about culture, about people. And I think one of the most exciting things about this role is that you do get to do that, and you just get to hear these beautiful stories that people have about their lives and why they've ended up where they've ended up and what they've done and been through to get where they've got to. And so I think that's probably one of the most joyous things, is that opportunity to meet so many different people and to hear these incredible stories. And of course, every time you do that, you grow as a person, right? And you understand the world a little better. So what an absolute privilege.
It broadens the worldview, I think, of international educators in a way that travel, it sort of upskills, that's not the right word, but it amplifies that sort of experience we get when we travel, when we live in another place, our worldview, our understanding of privilege and luck that we have sometimes in being born in a country like Australia compared with what some people have.
Absolutely.
I'd love to explore a little bit more. We've got the usual game, 2 truths and a lie, and we'll start with that. And what we'll do is reveal the answer at the end, and we'll repeat it a few times. We've got a few more people coming on as well. And while this is a recording, and this is a recording for the purpose of throwing into our podcast and into what we're calling our pod course on Singapore, a bit of a play on words there. Sorry, in EduSpark, I've got Singapore on the brain. And so we'll play this game, and for the people who are here, love to have you say hi and hello and where you're listening in from. We've already had Craig jump on. He's going to be in and out a little bit today with the things he's doing, but he'll jump on and say hello. And please ask Tania questions in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat as we go forward. So say hi, please, and tell us where you are. And Tania, your 2 truths and a lie. Now, for those people who don't know how this works, this is actually a bit of fun to have in, I think, many meetings. One of the things that we can do in when we gather with people is to connect with people before we start talking about content. And that's one of Chad Littlefield's approaches, the We and Me guru of the website. And he's one of my thought leader heroes. And so this little game is one way of having a bit of fun and getting to know people better. So we bring that here. So Tania will tell us 3 things, all plausible, and one of those will be not true. And we'll reveal that at the end. And I don't even know what they are at this stage. So Tania, over to you. Your 2 truths and a lie.
Okay, so I have written a book. I have done stand-up comedy, and I have a dog.
Okay, so you have your dog. You've done stand-up comedy and you've written a book. So we'll hold on to those and repeat those a little bit later for those who are listening. Just park that. If you're asynchronous, Craig's popped in there, but we'll hold on to that towards it. Okay, you might not be here at the end, so I'll report back to you, Craig, if you are correct or not. And we've got a packet of biscuits for Craig if he wins. But seriously, we do have some things to give away a little bit later on, but we will reveal that. And if you're listening asynchronously, you can check in towards the end as well. Just in terms of your... I said 2020 in the preparation before this, but 2020, 2021, what's your hashtag or your word to describe that, and your why behind that? What do you think about these last 2 years?
Well, I'm not quite sure I could say the hashtag I use frequently. Not quite sure that'd be appropriate for an audience. And it just feels like it's never ending. Look, I think, there's a couple of words that come to mind, and I think I speak for everyone. I think a lot of it's been languishing. There's a kind of like ho-hum, what's going on, and so forth. Another one I would say, of course, is just being incredibly flexible. And I think we've all had to do that. We've had to adapt. We've had to be flexible. We've had to change what we do. And I think it's also been very tiring. It's been emotionally tiring for people. And, I think we need to really recognize that. And it's been really hard. This hasn't been easy. And, just when you think you're okay, there's something else that comes along. And I think so much in education, teachers give so much of themselves all the time to their students that I think sometimes it's okay to just say, what, I'm really tired. This is really getting me down. And sometimes I think just to acknowledge that yourself, it's okay. We can't always be up every single moment of every day. And I think it's okay to have some down moments. So I think what I've done with myself is just allow that. That's okay. You can't, it's very hard to be positive all the time and it's just what it is. Yeah, it's just what it is, but it's not fun. It's been really difficult. People away from their loved ones, away from family, just everything that comes with that. And so I think my main 2 words would be tiring but also think flexible, which with that also comes that learning new skills and new things, which is exciting, of course, and being flexible enough to be able to keep doing what I'm doing. Like what a absolute privilege to still talk to people and work in the education field, even though it's now all online. So yeah, they're a couple of the words, a positive word and one that I feel just sometimes just allowing yourself to say, it's okay. This isn't easy.
I love that acknowledgement because it is what it is. And I think we have to acknowledge, oh, not again. And, I've never known, I didn't think I did not know all the letters of the Greek alphabet. And now, of course, Omicron's turned up. I did have to admit, is that a Greek letter? Why did they name it that? Was my first thought.
I know.
And of course,
I know. There was I'm sorry, I can't remember who wrote this on Twitter. So if it was you, please let me know. But there was something on Twitter I was reading the other day, like, this has got to, it was something along these words. I'm not quoting exactly, but, this has got to be the most painful and slowest way to learn the Greek alphabet.
So, absolutely. Not me, but I agree with that.
Yeah.
Some more of you then. What, just looking at the question, so I frame it properly. A thought leader, an author, someone in the education sphere that's your hero in terms of a thought, someone who's had influence on you in the last couple of years especially. Although if it's someone big, you might call that out longer than that time period. But who for you has been a key thought leadership influencer for you?
Oh, I mean, I'd have to say Kath Murdoch, obviously, because number one, she was my lecturer at uni, and so I've known her for a very, very long time, and she's just such an incredible educator, but just such a good person as well, and she's always there if you want to ask something or you want some advice, and it's just been wonderful to have an opportunity to collaborate with her on a couple of things as well. So she's always at the forefront just because I've known her for so long, and she's been a part of my life for a really, really long time. I mean, after uni, I didn't see her for ages, and then we invited her to come to Eunice when I worked at Eunice Hanoi, and just reconnecting again, and then having that thought person, right, and someone that you really admire and respect to connect to. I'm very, very lucky in my life. I have a lot of educators that I'm able to connect to and ask things of, and I think that's so important because we always want to learn. We need our tribe, right? There's that tribe of people that helps you improve, that you can go to if you're not sure of something, that you can hash over some ideas with, and so I'm just so lucky to have just these amazing group of educators that I can tap into from different kind of fields within the education spectrum as well. So it's great.
Kath is brilliant, and we hope at some stage further down the track, she is incredibly busy, as you would well know. I think a level above sometimes people like you and I, but she is amazing. We'd love to see her do something with us at some point in the future. Love for you to share. Part of the whole idea is get to know you and get to know a key idea of yours. And I'm going to share an image from that we've set up beforehand. Would you like to introduce this idea, this central? I mean, you would have dozens of ideas you can share. So I'd love to know, what is this idea that you're sharing, and why have you chosen this one?
Yeah, look, the whole purpose, I wrote myself a big idea or a central idea or a conceptual understanding. There's so many words in education for the same thing. It gets really annoying. I'm waiting for the day where someone just globally says, can we just use this for this? So I wrote, understanding the conceptual inquiry process promotes agency and relevant and meaningful learning. So to me, that's really what we're after in anything that we're teaching. We want relevance, we want meaning, and we want to promote learner agency as a part of that. And so I use this inquiry process as a way to ensure that. But I think the most important thing that we have to recognize about inquiry is that it isn't linear. I was just planning with the team literally 20 minutes before we came on, and we talked about, as we're planning, we were saying, well, you're going to revisit inquiry as connection, and you're going to revisit inquiry as provocation, and we're going to be revisiting, and inquiry as critical wondering takes place throughout the whole unit. So we know through research that learners do go through a process, but it's that idea that this process is very adaptable based on students. And if we're giving them agency, they're not all going to be at the same place at the same time as we go through this process. And to me, part of that is that understanding that when we work with learners, we're planning in response to them. We're not planning for them. And so we've got to really see, if you like, this inquiry process as overlapping, revisiting, in connection to students and where they're at in their learning at that time.
So the question that comes to mind now is for the person, given that we've got a broad audience that will be listening to this, I think the term inquiry itself is well known in parts of the education sphere, but there are others who may not be as familiar as they could be. And we're really mindful that we can, over time, bring access to quality professional learning to all regions in the world. And I'm struck at the moment by how privileged often the West is. It's an expectation that we have professional development. We get into these beautifully deep conversations about the process itself. But if we had someone from Indonesia, if we had someone from Tanzania even, we've got some people connections building in Africa, what would you say is the core definition of the process of inquiry itself, just to give them a frame of reference for this particular model?
Yeah, and I mean, I think, there are, I work with a lot of teachers, and there are teachers, I work with who have professional learning, and some of them have not heard of inquiry. So I think it depends your background really in terms of your own teaching experience and in terms of your teacher education, right? And your own learning experience as well. So it's certainly something that not everyone is au fait with. But I think when I talk about an inquiry process, it's that idea that when we learn, we want to consider some key components of learning. And we know that those key components are really important for students' understanding. They're really important for students to have access to their learning. They're important to allow students control of that learning as well, and that brings in that learner agency. So it's that idea that when we think about an inquiry process, that there are certain things that we want to make sure that we're planning for as a part of that. And the most important thing is that we can't have every section of this process planned to the nth degree. Because if we've planned it so much, and we've done week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6, this is what we're doing. And we've put in a lot of activities, because I would say when we plan like that, we're often planning activities, not necessarily meaningful learning engagements. And if we've done that, what we're not doing is actually leaving space for inquiry. And that's the most important thing. And when I talk about inquiry, I'm talking about where are students taking this? What theories are we noticing these young children develop? Based on where they're taking it, based on their theories, based on their questions, what do we do next? Whereas if we have that all explicitly planned out, we're not able to do that because we're too busy getting through what we've decided students should get through, instead of having this very flexible, adaptable planner that grows in response to the process, and very strategically, in this image, having the students in the center, because everything should be really coming from those students. So you can plan to a certain degree, but if we're really talking about inquiry, a lot of that planning is then going to happen as a response to where students take that learning, how they connect to those provocations and where they take them, what they have, what questions they have as a part of critical wondering, what their interests are. And I think it's really, in a sense, rethinking our curriculum. And that's why I've called this the conceptual inquiry process, because I've really tried to show how we can promote conceptual understanding at every stage of this. So we're connecting students to concepts, we're provoking them around the concepts, we're allowing them to investigate, to build understanding of concepts, and asking them, how can you investigate your own ideas or your own understanding as well? So that was a very long answer. Sorry.
No, don't apologise. It's great. So this image, would you say that this is a series of inquiry strategies, or are they inquiry behaviours that kids might show? How would you fill out this particular diagram?
I would say that what they are is they're in inquiry steps, but not steps because it's not a step by step. This is what we need to consider when we're planning for inquiry. And so what we're doing when we're thinking about inquiry as connection, what we're actually doing is planning some engagements to allow students to connect to the learning. When we're planning for inquiry as provocation, it's that idea of wonder, of awe, of curiosity around the learning. When we're planning for critical wondering, it's that idea that we're collecting students' questions. We're collecting their interests. We're collecting these theories and we're considering them. And we're thinking, well, based on this, what do we need to do next? And we might need to go back and do some more provocation. Or we might start then thinking about, well, if these are the questions that they have, let's ask them how they can investigate them. Or what can we put in place to help them investigate these understandings? So again, developing engagements that promote that investigation. And then when we think about inquiry as reflection, it's that idea of that metacognition of students reflecting on their own learning and really putting that idea of understanding at the forefront of that. Like, what do you understand now that you might not have understood yesterday? Or, where might we go with our understanding? And then, of course, the representation being how are we representing our learning? And what does that look like? And what are some possibilities? And again, I'm hoping people are seeing that throughout this, there's lots and lots of choice in terms of what that might look like, with students co-constructing that learning with us. And I think that's a really important thing about inquiry is that, as I said, we don't plan it all. We're co-constructing learning, we're co-constructing ideas with students and asking them as well. And then, of course, that transformation, that idea of how has the learning changed me? How has it had an impact on me? How have I changed as a learner as a consequence of the learning that I've been in? And I think what we really want through all of that is, because we are really focused on this idea of conceptual learning, is that we want that transfer of understanding and that application of learning. And, I've been working with the team. I've been planning with teams all week, actually. And this whole idea, well, okay, now that you've learned that, what are they going to do with it? Like, what's the whole purpose of us learning this? And I think sometimes we can get so bogged down by curriculum content, we haven't thought about the purpose of the learning, or why we're learning this, or why this matters, or why it's important. And I think, before we start planning anything, before we even embark on this process, we should actually be thinking, is this something worth learning? Is there opportunities for students to take this learning and transfer and apply it in an authentic situation, rather than, what I see a lot, not a lot of, but what can often be out there is students just learn stuff. But they don't get to do anything with it. It's like, oh yeah, now that you've learned all this, it's like, well, okay, what are they going to do with it now that they've learned it? Like, what's the thing that's driving that I call it the so what. So what's the so what of the learning? What's the purpose?
There's some further reading and research I'm doing by listening to this vast quantity of work by a man from Canada called John Vervaeke, and his 4 ways of knowing, and he has these lovely levels of addressing the way in which we know stuff, and the propositional, the what, and the procedural, the how, tends to be the focus of what we do. But he's got this lovely layer above, which is all about perspectival, the context, the application. There's another one which is even harder to define above that, which is participatory knowing, that sense of knowing as we do stuff with other people. But to me, that starts to define this as a model. And I see this as maybe a dance mat. You sort of, there's no necessary sequence of steps other than, depending on the context, the beat, the rhythm, how you're feeling at the time. Not really, but you know what I mean. There's that sense of the contextual application of this depending on the circumstance.
Yeah, and I think that's it. It's contextualizing it to the learning, but it's also it is making sure that we are putting that student in the center of this, and that we're responding to that rather than deciding that this is what we're doing for you. There's that great quote by, I think it's Harry Silver and Jay McTighe, where they talk about understanding has to be earned by the learner. And I think as soon as you think of learning like that, so it's not this idea that I can't teach you to understand something, right? You have to be involved actively in that to come to an understanding. I can teach you to know stuff, but I think understanding is that idea, as David Perkins talks about, right? It's got stretch, it's got reach, it's got all these things that make it far more complicated in a way than just knowing. And so I think if we can think about this idea of learning as students have to earn it, then we really rethink what we're putting in front of them. And I love Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about just put things in front of kids and let them explore.
Yeah.
And I love that idea as well. So let's put things in front of them and see what they do with them. I always say, is this something you have to tell the students, or is there something you can put in their way where they tell you what they've understood from what you've put in their way? And I think thinking about inquiry like that can just really just change, I think, your perspective as a teacher in terms of what you might put out in front of students. And so really thinking about that level of engagement, I guess, and are they active participants in their learning? Are they having that opportunity to make sense of their learning, or is it something that I'm giving them? So I think it's a nice way to think about learning and the role of the student.
So it shifts the responsibility in some ways. And just acknowledging Craig, he's been listening along and he's had to dive off, probably going to pick up his daughters, I'd say, and he's calling out one of the things that I'll call out towards the end of how people maybe might access your pro course on this. And just as a wrap-up, we could talk forever on this, but for me, it's the work. There's no learning without work. And everything you've said actually also applies to the domain of adult learning, where understanding has to be earned. And I often use one or two metaphors, but the one that I've been using lately is imagine that you wanted a buff, well-chiseled body and you bought a gym membership and you went and sat in the corner and watched other people do the work. It's just not going to happen, is it? You've got to get onto the machines, and that's one of the universal truths of life. There's the return on effort actually comes from the grit, the toil, the sweat, the hard work, the graft, the exploration, the pain, the discomfort, all of those things mixed in together. So it's
definitely. And I think to the educators out there that may be listening, this has been a really difficult year, a difficult couple of years. There are some schools that are probably still online, some that have been online for a year and a half, others that have been on and off online. But then even when you're at school, right, you're wearing masks, you're having to separate students in a lot of schools, and then they can't share materials. So you've got teachers creating little packs for everyone. And I see that as just so much teacher learning that went into that, and so much care. And I think educators, when you talk about influential people, I do want to say that the educators out there that have managed to do this and managed to keep those students engaged because they care so much, they're phenomenal, right? It's just been incredible. And so it's been talk about not having time to earn your understanding, right? It was just like, boom, here we go, we're all online, deal with it. And so I think that there's just been such an amazing learning curve for them, and the fact that they're still going. I know they can't wait till December, many of them, for a break, but I do want to just say, kudos, you're all incredible, and you just care so much about their students. And they're learning too.
100%, I agree, and it's that agency, isn't it? Sometimes we have to respond to stuff outside of our control, and
yes.
I would love to do this again at some stage, but we've got that 2 truths and a lie to answer. If anyone wants to throw into the chat, it depends on how people are listening. Sometimes on the mobile app it's a bit hard to do so. But just quickly review those 3 things again. It was writing a book.
Written a book, done stand-up comedy, and I have a dog.
Okay, so Craig's already called out the dog as the one that's not. Now, if we've got anyone who has the time to throw into the chat, I know one of them, so it's reduced back to 50% for me, and that's a bit cheating. So I'm probably going to go with the stand-up comedy, but that's a bit of a lurker, so I wouldn't be surprised if I'm wrong on that one. Just checking to see, sometimes we get a really active chat group and sometimes we get people who are quite passive. But for the sake of time, let us know which one of those 3 is it. I know you've got a book.
I don't have a dog. I wish. I mean, it's all I want though. So I'm doing. What was that book where you imagine it and it happens? I'm hoping it'll happen. I can't wait to have it. But no, I have written a book and I have done stand-up comedy.
Now it doesn't surprise me, but it sort of was the obvious choice in some ways. And I won't put you on the spot and get you to riff something at this stage of the day. That would be a very awful thing as a friend to do. Where can people find you? That's the main thing. We've got a few things to wrap up here. So you're strong on Twitter.
Yes. So I can be found on Twitter at IGE Educators. LinkedIn, I'm active there. I have Innovative Global Education, a Facebook page, and we have IGE Andrea Mueller and Tania Lattanzio as a Facebook page, and also Facebook group, and Innovative Global Education as a Facebook group. And I've also just got an Instagram account called Tania Connects, and I'm getting my head around that. It's learning something new, right?
Yeah, it's always new. It's like this particular app as well. It's relatively new. So I did want to call out that everything you've spoken about, you've put together in this fabulous course here. And you've got a second course that you've just recently released with the lovely Jenny Chang Waddle from Hong Kong. Do you want to quickly talk about the UDL course?
Yeah, so Jenny Waddle and I, we've collaborated a couple of times. Again, this is what I mean about what a joy, right, to get to collaborate with these amazing educators. And so we got together and we talked about creating this course about universal design for learning and differentiation, and looking at the commonalities that exist between them. And then some real practical, I mean, the one thing about both courses that I've done, and the one with Jenny and this one, is lots of practical ideas that we can take and implement into the classroom. And I think that's really important for teachers. You need to understand the why, of course, that goes without saying. We need to understand how that connects to our learners and why that's important for our learners. And then it's always nice to have some practical strategies and ideas in that. So Jenny and I have really been working on that, and we've come up with a model for learning that we think blends the two of them. So that's in the course. So that's been really exciting to have had the chance to do that with her.
I should have had that page up and running as well, but I've popped those links as well as a range of other things in the chat. I've had one person say also they would have gone for the dog, but you didn't say who that was. Unfortunately, I think Riverside doesn't automatically add your name, so if you want to, maybe we'll send you the biscuits. But literally what we can do is they might be a bit crumbly by the time they get to most people, or a bit soggy. These are both pro courses. Now in EduSpark we've got a bunch of free courses, but we also have high value pro courses. If people want to have a go at trialling and getting access to Tania's course, Sophie from Luxembourg, welcome Sophie. Sophie, do you remember Sophie Debut? I've called you out your name, Sophie Ladonna. She was at the Aussie school with me as well, and she's soon to be author of a course in this platform as well. And she's
wonderful.
So hi Sophie, great to connect.
Sophie.
Yeah, so
good. Beautiful. So beautiful.
Yeah, so we shall connect. And Sophie is in the field of metacognition, and her brain would have been kicking off with all of the things that you said. So there's some future opportunities for day-long events where we get people together around a theme, and inquiry metacognition is one that's forming for something we'll do next year. So I was just saying that there's a trial if people want to jump on and jump in and access this course, for example, free for a month, then there's a link there. Also, just in the closing moments, if there are any questions for Tania, otherwise we're into that stage of wrapping up and finishing for the day. Tania, I know how busy you are, and I really appreciate both the work you've done in EduSpark and the time you've given us today. I hope that it's given people a chance to not only know your stuff, but know you. And it's something that I find very important. Often, we go straight into our fire hosing of, in webinars and all our online delivery without stopping to know the person. And I think that's one of the goals of this series, is to do so.
No, it's nice. I think I like that connection, right? Because we're often in the room with people where it's a lot easier, and it does get it's a bit harder online. Yeah.
Exactly. And I hope to catch up for coffee soon at some stage.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, it will be probably early next year with the way the year's going.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure. I was sure before the end of last week that I was heading down to Australia for Christmas, but not quite sure how that's shaping up at this stage. So that might
I'm
much
the same. Sitting here with a little bit of anticipation and hope.
Yeah, exactly. So there are no questions that have come in. I'll wrap this up now. This will be both a podcast on all of the podcast channels, and there'll be links around social for that. We're also producing this as a series of conversations in a course. We're trying to redefine what a course might actually be in this platform. A course is not necessarily a sequential access of content opportunities. We want to reframe what that could be. So this broad sort of banner of a collection of opportunities to connect and engage. There is a pod course inside EduSpark, and you'll find that here. And Tania, thank you so much. Thanks, Sophie. Your name has come up. I would also go for the dog. That's permanently your name. So the next time we connect, we might have to help people reframe that one. But Sophie will be in touch shortly as well. So Tania, thank you very much. I wish you a fabulous Christmas wherever that might be spent.
Yes. Well, if it's here, Andrew, we might get that coffee before 2022.
Yeah, indeed. All right, then.
And thank you again, everyone out there for listening. It's much appreciated.
Perfect. Okay, well, that will tie it up, and we'll look forward to the next one. And thank you, Tania, again. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Bye.